Hi, everybody. My name is Yuri Granovski. I came from Kiev yesterday, and I'm extremely happy to hear my name together with the earlier given names, and also I feel it feels really great to feel like an expert of participatory practice. I'm the head of the department. We can be called the agency. Agenti Zmin, the agents of change. That will be the English name for us. So this is a pretty kind of big, pathetic name, but actually it's not about maximalism or it's a pathetic. It's about this holistic approach that was born and that was formed on different practical components. I will present two cases today. One of them is successful. We call it to be successful. The second one is less successful. Anyhow, we try to understand what went right and what went wrong in those two cases to understand what works well and what doesn't. Also, in order to highlight what we have two groups in our organization. We do spatial studies and we do facilitation and involvement of people in design process. We have the direction that's called architecture of public spaces. We don't do the architecture of buildings or volumes. We only do the public spaces. So the navigation and communication, we do informational design. That is our direction, because of which our organization was founded. And the fourth is also called the movement, or they are the guys that bring life to public spaces and who draw partners to our ideas and to our initiatives. So in 4 years, we have arrived where we are now through design thinking. Part of our core team are the people who have the classical interface design, and service design. And design thinking was something that we had hardwired in our DNA. Our team building project was a new subway metro scheme, as well as navigation inside the subway, inside the metro stations. So then, after this underground work, we started doing the transport navigation. And the next stage of our development was the navigation in the cities, such as new address plaques and park navigation. We're making the pedestrian navigations, or overall the system of orientation in Kiev, and simply that turned out to be not enough, just socializing with people in public spaces. So we decided to create those public spaces. And now, on top of everything else, and through participatory design, we are creating whole concepts of district developments. We have a project in Kiev, and we also have a project in Odessa. We're not limited by Kiev only. So there's a huge question mark at the end of this line, and the spiral will unravel and will go further. And design thinking, as well as participatory design, will be applied in unexpected places. So the peculiarity of our team is that we have a 22,000 community. All of our projects are open. We try to speak about decisions that were making and were followed by a high number of Kiev residents who are biggest defenders and prosecutors, who are keeping us on track and making sure that we do not go off track or don't go sideways. And they also provide some feedback to us. We have a mission. It keeps on changing, yes, with every kind of layer of our spiral. It keeps on changing. So the last stable version is we make public spaces better. However, it seems to be changing now slowly. So into changing the status quo of a city culture and a city life in the city for people. So we don't quite like how the city life evolves for the city residents, and we don't like that, and we want to change that. We want to introduce new approaches in forming of public spaces and new approaches in using the city by the people. We also have another principle, the total participation. One of the principles is a theoretical concept which has not been fully introduced in any of the project, but it seems to be a kind of building, evolving into something holistic and something well tested. It consists of two building blocks. We believe that the team of change and a team of projects must be formed of several stages. The first one, the big team of the project, when we involve everyone, subcontractors, and from a regular waterfall cascade system, we make a more dynamic, more flexible system when we're one team, all of us together. Then into that one, we involve those who are not indifferent, those who care, such as expert administration, and that becomes the foundation for an ecosystem. Then we involve the local residents, and once the project is done, we try to make sure that there is a territorial community that is left on the spot, in the field, who will continue using the space and who will continue evolving the space further. And the second principle is that this Agents of Change team member can be anyone, not smart, educated architect, but anyone who has an influence or who may influence somehow the project. And what's more importantly, the team of change agents are the ones who can somehow influence the project, and those are usually the local residents. So it can be reflected in this sort of complicated scheme, complicated-looking scheme. So we have a big team project, and the important figure here is the teamwork facilitator. In fact, it's not an easy task to agree between each other and to work as one team if you have different tasks. There might be marketologists if the project was initiated by a business. There are designers, architects, researchers. There can be actually a whole commercial client who has commissioned this project to us to pursue some commercial goals. So we need to be able to work with that, to learn to work with that, to share the results and to influence each other to move forward effectively. However, if we continue working like this, we understand that we're not using all of the capacity that we have. There are lots of people who could help us by their unique knowledge in a particular field or knowledge of a particular location, site, who could help us with the history of the place. And we try to expand this big project to add some experts who, through our project, will be able to implement their own vision and their own projects. And also the city administration. These are the people who has a political will, who can directly or indirectly influence the project. What's important here is the partner management specialists or professionals, because we need to bring on those people and we need to make sure that those partners are engaged and are effective. So even if we are united by one beautiful goal, we're all experts of different origin, of different kind, no matter what, we will have to face a situation that when we approach people with this beautiful project, a beautiful idea of organizing a beautiful courtyard for kids or organize a beautiful city space, we have this risk always that the local residents will perceive us as aliens and will try to kind of push us out, elbow us out, or reject us. Usually the impact is like anywhere but my own courtyard, anyone but my home. So no matter how beautiful goal you have, most likely the majority of local people will consider you unnecessary. They would consider you some smart, know-it-all experts who are trying to impose certain lifestyle on them. The secret is to make sure that we, as a big project team, as the team of experts are a small part and are assimilated of this bigger community. So when we become an inseparable part of the community, the most active part though, in which case we can say we are not the project team. We are just helping you here by knowledge, by processes, by resources, and so on. And it is important. The most important role is this community facilitator, someone who acts as a mediator and acts as a facilitator and capable of bringing different people, very diverse people, around one table to work with the experts without any aggression or anything destructive. So even if we succeed, even if we will have implemented a project together, at some point of time, for different reasons, we as an agent of change will have to just get lost, go get lost. Like, you know, the very first stage of a rocket carrier or spaceship carrier. We can't really stay there forever because sometimes simply because we have other projects to do, to implement, and we want to redirect our resources for other projects. So for these changes that were created by local community, for them not to roll back, we need to have this point of no return and to leave behind an effective, sustainable community that will continue using and developing this space further on. And it is important to find local agents of change, equip them with a toolkit, charge them with enthusiasm, give them ideas to allow them continue doing after the professionals and this external team of experts is gone, allowing the local communities working on their own. So I would like to show how it worked and how it did not work in two projects. A couple of years ago, we did a public space of Kiev municipality. So this is the building. It's a Khrushchev building. I don't know whether you've been to Kiev. You probably recognize this building. You've seen this building, but you probably couldn't guess that it was a municipality, Kiev municipality. It's one of the monumental buildings on Kiev's main street. We call it the Stalin time Baroque. And official title is Stalin's Empire. And actually, Khrushchev, after the war, was developed and devised in a very pathetic or pompous way. And this building actually translates the power and the might of the Soviet times. And so the function and the message that is translated by this building needed to be rethought. And while respecting the fact that this is a monument of architecture. So we've been offered and proposed to make the system of navigation for the first floor of this building and to generally comment on the new project that was created by the architect. So we looked at the project and said that it looks like some herbal treatment. We must go to the very beginning and to try to understand why the project is like this and why people and what do people need and what is needed by the people who work there, who live there, and what processes are there and how they need to be serviced. So we started a survey. It was a 4-stage survey. First of all, we looked at the world practices. We did the content analysis on such sites as Art Daily. We looked at the beautiful photos of newly redesigned municipality buildings in Europe. We wrote letters to some of them and received actually answers. And we've learned about their experience through our communication process. We have started the processes that take place in that space. We looked around. We had in-depth interviews with the staff, with the city council and city administration. These are the two buildings, two entities that sit there. Then we started the user experience. We looked at people. We observed actually people using that building. We had interviews with the visitors, and what's most importantly, we had interviews with the regular pedestrians on Khrushchev Street about their opinion about the building. Actually, it's a building that belongs to all of us, the Kiev residents, and we have the right to use it. However, it's not being used, and that is why we talk to non-users to understand what they think and what their attitude is, and whether they know if it is a Kiev city municipality. So eventually, after all that, we have also involved the experts. We wanted to understand what experts think about this. We talked to profile experts and city activists. We've learned different opinions as to what the Kyiv City Hall should look like and what it should, how it should be designed. So, world practices apparently can be different. The city halls can be bright, democratic buildings where you can sit on the steps and talk. They can be pretty dynamic to host some events on a square in front of a city hall. They can be useful. They can host some co-working spaces. And we also compared with what we have. So starting from the door, for instance. We tried to actually to storm the door. We bought the weight and we measured the effort that you need to apply to enter the building. Speaking of accessibility of this building, so actually it is inaccessible starting from the entrance, from the door. Then we looked at the navigation system inside. So it says go to the left, but actually the arrow goes to the right, and actually has a meaning. So it's not just for nothing. And the result of this survey were the recommendations on transforming this event. The recommendations for 44 pages. So we gave about 60 recommendations and results of the study itself on 66 pages. So we read through those documents and we understood that they will be nicely put on a shelf. So we were commissioned to simply make the recommendations and to provide architects some entry-point information, entry-point data. But we understand that all of our recommendations will not be used. The decision makers will look at that and they will say, oh, this is too much or too difficult, and that will be the end of it. So we did not stop there. We wanted to prove that anything till the very last recommendations is pretty feasible to implement. And we have assembled a workshop of 2 teams, 10 persons in each, comprising of the City Hall staff and a profile expert, as well as our team members. One of the team works with internal space, another one worked with the square in front of the City Hall that needs some transformation for its very obsolete. It has some useless steps and ladders and some useless trees as well. So the idea is that participation, in any case, was the response to our incompetence, lack of our internal competence. We do not want and we cannot have enough expertise to transform everything in the city, and we have assembled this workshop because we ourselves did not understand of how this could be done. So there's a short video on how we did all that. names of the workshop participants are being displayed on the site. Well, this was the workshop, and as a result, we came up with the functional zoning of this space. So we've been able to show what is where, and where everything must be, and how the most important processes must evolve in this space. And the success was that we actually succeeded by not changing the space, not enlarging it or reducing it, or not going to other floors and so on. We actually used only the first floor space only, so we've been able to introduce new functions. The lecture hall that can be used by everyone in the city, provided they booked the space in advance. Kids room, or kids playroom, and the room to meet the local MPs or the local council members, so that it did not look weird when you meet outside and meet in the corridor. So there's enough space to do that around the table and in a normal room. Also, we made the functional zoning of the area of how it could be done and could be more human-oriented. So unfortunately, the square, this area, unfortunately, whilst socializing and talking to the utilities or to the city services, this outside the square is not being changed at all. However, the internal part is being changed, and it's being done by our partner, the renders, there's some architect bureau. So a year ago, one wing was open. This year, the building is available fully, and the way it looks now, so everything we have designed was introduced, was implemented in the real world. So you have everything you need to change a diaper or to feed your kid. You see there this beautiful and bright open space. You don't really need to think of which room you need to visit, which official you need to see. There is a line, electronic line. You just take a number, you take a tag, and you wait for your line. So the way it looks in reality, I don't really see. These are my photos. Well, these are the photos from the official opening. These are my own kind of, routine photos. So you see that not everything, works well in open space. You still have same files with the announcement, okay, copies are not made, we don't sell any envelopes, and so on and so forth. However, the big victory is that the lecture hall that I mentioned is being used and is operational now. It's being used by different city initiatives to host lectures and workshops. So this is the one that I was able to visit in a redesigned way. So the idea seems to be effective. So why we succeeded, going back to our theoretical scheme, we had a very strong people of engaged and committed people. All the city activists, strong, smart, educated, they were involved. The city municipality was actively involved. Well, we worked with the city municipality building, and of course they couldn't but be engaged. So the process was lengthy, and our ties grew stronger. And they became they turned into the local agents of change, the municipality that keeps on using this building. After we left, they stayed, and they continue being the agents of change. So we have involved into this workshop those who work in the building, the staff members of the press center and others. So I guess because of that, we have received we've been able to hear their requirements, and we've been able to meet some of their requirements and needs, and we have created a conflict-free space. So where we failed, actually, we didn't go to the stage of service design. We didn't work through the services, but a design of the services by which the client will receive some services. So the space is nice, works well. Unfortunately, we don't quite understand. We have never done a detailed and a comprehensive assessment of the project results, but we would like to do that in the second iteration of the project. And the second project, that is a very bright, but it has doesn't have such nice results, nothing to show for. I mean, not the same as successful as previous. So this is the peripheral part. It's a kind of the free planning district, very typical for Kyiv. However, the peculiarity is that we don't have enough types or enough kind of these streets. So along this district, we have a 100 pedestrian walk in the middle or in the center. It is called by Broadway by the locals. We decided to take use of that, and while working, we considered this whole neighborhood, and we started the whole neighborhood and involved people for all are the users of this public space that is stretched for 800 meters. So it does not look so great, for it has lots of potential for it. It's a long promenade when people can walk, where they can meet, where they can talk, and actually it is the promenade where that you can develop by adding some creative spaces. So it looks the way it looks. So it is the way it is. So we set the task for us, and we had in the form of a question: how could we create the concept of public space development that would launch and trigger the Broadway transformation based on the needs and with participation of the main users? So we did not want to make this architectural project, but we wanted to reach this point of no return around which the local residents would unite, and that would turn into a seed of an architectural project that they will discuss as an architectural project and will then introduce in the upcoming years. So how it was happened? Yes. So this is the very first public space. We all know about that. Yes, and there is a problem with the public spaces of this peripheral reason. Since we are responsible with design, we started with reconstruction of a pedestrian line on Kharkov Massif. We studied something that is called Broadway. So we choose the function where the active assets. Yes, we will be using this space, definitely, yes. Well, I apologize that sometimes the translation may not match the video, for the video wasn't provided to translators, and therefore I'm just watching it from my screen, and sometimes it's not the same as you can see. Also, some speakers are using Ukrainian. I spend enough time here. This is essential. Today we have gathered here the users of this space, Broadway space, and the people who are somehow influential, the utilities, the church, the 3 schools that are here, as well as the local residents. So today they're working to form a long-term and short-term goals for development of this space. It's excellent that as a product of this work, we've been able to have this community, people who did this project. They are the co-authors of our project. That is great, because they are the ones who will help us implement the project, and they will be the first ones to add some information. So data that we collected during this study and workshop, so we actually turned them into feasibilities, kind of terms of reference for the architects who will try to find some spatial solutions for some of these questions. So, and we actually turned it into peripheral square and a very good and exceptional public space. So, this is something that has not been formed and is used by transit space, and actually people are not using, the people do not have this ownership sense, ownership feeling, and the intention is to make them semi-private. We have analyzed the pedestrian flows. We made a scheme of new routes through this whole space. The 800 area was subdivided into different kind of zones, and we made functional zoning. And what's interesting is that well, I don't know whether you know this project, but Alejandro Araven, in one of the Latin American countries, he found this exceptional, very smart solution that initially people will have half a house, half a building as a social housing, and they can make the best with the half of money that they have, given that another half will be used by the young families on their own, and they will develop, they will devise and evolve those spaces without having to save with initial funding. So in that functional zoning that we had, some of the public spaces were designed with very great detail, and they were supposed to be the first for introduction, for implementation, and some of the zones were some designated, some functions to save some room for further development of the project, while understanding that we might not have enough funding and all of the funding necessary for overall project implementation. So then we did the model street profile. We addressed some of the tactical issues. So one of the most critical and crucial challenges for the local people was that in the evening, the people with guitars and beer, like using this area, who would go and piece the floors and piece the walls of their buildings. So for that, we actually designed this sort of small booths. Actually, local people wanted to put a fence around the house to make sure that all the people are fenced off. So that was the one model we offered, to make it semi-private, semi-protected, and that's the second one. So for the transformations to happen even after we're gone, we tried to make a methodological guidebook on how to proceed further and how to implement the project, where to find the money, where to find the architects, and so on. But unfortunately, the project slightly slowed down. Actually, did not go further than that methodological guidebook. And my hypothesis as to why that happened was that the administrative bodies who had the political will to change something, those were local MPs, the city council, and the Ukrainian parliament member. They were rotating. They were rotating very often, and as a result, their interests and their focus rotated as well, and somehow deviated, and that way we lost the administrative support. Also, what's more important in that we were not able to breed and to nurture local agents of change who could continue pushing for the project, who would continue attracting experts, and who could get people together, discuss the future of their district. So my personal conclusion is that one or two workshops is simply not enough to come up or to nurture this critical mass of people sufficient to take the project further. Even despite the workshop where people have committed to certain tasks, to certain initiatives, However, despite those commitments, no strong community was formed, and it dissolved as fast as it assembled, right after we stopped working on the project. Another important aspect is that for various reasons, in different moments of time, we have to pay attention to other projects, and one of the reasons that we are an agency, and actually we do not have a way to receive money for our projects, and we keep on looking for different funding sources for us, for those who want to change the city. So, and that is why, as a project team, we had to fall out of the project implementation due to lack of funding. So maybe these ideas, these lessons will be taken into account in the future. I think with this we can finish, and we will discuss it after the second presentation. I'll be happy to take your questions. Thank you. Hello, Yuri. My name is Ivan. You mentioned that what you do is similar to mediation. Is that correct? You help set up the links, the connections, and help different parties agree on things with each other. Well, we have to do that because there's always some conflict environment. It's kind of a very tense environment. I cannot call myself a mediator. However, what do you do when one of the parties, say if it's a state, is against the idea, against the project? They have their own lobbied interests, and they do not want to interact with the civil society. Are you helpless, or are you able of doing something? Thank you. It's a very good question. That actually is a situation, well, not standard, but a very frequent one. So, well, same with the aching leg. If you have to go somewhere, but your leg is aching, is hurting, then you have to decide whether it is hurting really bad that prevents you from walking, then you have to cut it off and maybe use the other leg that doesn't hurt. Or maybe it's still bearable, then you just have to endure, so to say. Well, it depends on whether they can be useful or not useful, even if they are opposed to the idea. I have a question on that. Well, on the fences around the house, that the people asked you to fence the buildings, so because the bombs or other people that turn their buildings into toilets. So actually, it's true. Anything that it's very situation very true for Almaty. The fence taller than 70 centimeters is not allowed in Almaty. Moreover, the authorities do not allow. They even combat, they fight the setting up of fences. So you said the semi-private areas, and that was it. How to protect, how to defend the houses from littering? Thank you. It is a very interesting question, but it's a very difficult one. Well, let me try to explain this. So people had a solution, ready-to-use solution. So when we discussed the problems and the further goals, tactical, strategic goals for the development, area development, one of the goals of what they could do that very year, to simply put a fence around their house, around their building. So it wasn't to protect the beauty that what we tried to do. That's what they already want to do. As an alternative solution that we proposed was not to have the fences, but also have some maybe bushes and some vegetation around. So fences are not prohibited, but we are also against the fences, against the fencing in general. We had a whole workshop with big architectural company to defense those gated communities that we have many of in Kiev, because that is an unhealthy development for a city. Setting up the fences and so on. That is why we're trying to find alternative solutions. And this alternative to simply putting a fence, or maybe even making a fence, but make it functionally interesting, like having some bushes around it, make it to make it have a functional function. So because the project stopped even at the concepting stage, I can't say anything else, for we didn't understand how we could do that in reality. Questions? Yeah? My name is Yulia. I have the following question. If it's not a secret, please share. Who financed the project with the city municipality, with the city hall? I see that you've done a lot of work, and I'm interested to see. So our work, okay, who financed our work, and the introduction as well. Well, it was the happy times when we were volunteers who worked for free for the city. So we simply could afford working on the project for as long as we needed and as the way we needed it to be. Well, we have several stages of team formation. We do not like the volunteering. We call it the design initiative. So in our free time, we would meet in co-working, we would make navigation for a subway system. And at some point we understood that to make these changes more systematic and for us to be more predictive and something, we needed to turn it into our main work, main job. So some of us have resigned from our places, from our IT positions, for instance, and we formed a team. So we actually were financed by the crowd funds from donations. And on our next stage, we decided that we should quit this needle or the drug of donations and become a professional team and become commercially viable. So Broadway, actually, that was the failure of a commercial idea when we needed to pay salaries. And however, the municipality, the city hall idea was where we could afford simply doing the project without receiving the money for it. Yeah, and they already had some reconstruction plans. But I said those were very strange, weird projects, and we need to understand what people need. So we sort of extended and prolonged this process for them. But otherwise, they would have had it anyway without our creative ideas, though. Hello, my name is Elvira. You said that in order to have successful activation, you need to convince people that the project is theirs and you're just helping them. Could you please describe that transition period? Do you find any activists who initiate the project, or how is it done? It's the hardest part of all, for many reasons. For instance, oftentimes the change initiators, and that's the way in Kyiv, is the private developer. And private developer who has different development projects is always an evil for the residents of Kazakhstan. So the maximum evil, the worst evil in Kyiv is the private developers. So we try to work with the adequate or the good developers. However, there is always this negative attitude. So oftentimes when we come there, we have this negative attitude, and it is as if, sort of greenwashing, but for developers, sort of developer washing, so that a developer could erect a tall, high skyscraper and with the pretext of having something good for the residents. So it is hard, but we do the first contact with the residents, and it kind of turns into a whirlpool to engage and involve more people. But we have to keep in translating the messages that blocks them. The initial social studies of people help us understand the needs of the people and also help us understand the obstacles for people to do something, preventing them, something that prevents them from setting up the communities. So whenever we go into a public active phase, we understand what messages they need to deliver. So that is not always successful. Sometimes we hit the target, sometimes we miss. But at least we're prepared, and after the polling and this study, we know what kind of messages, negative messages we might encounter. So we try to translate the right messages. And if it's a developer, we try to prepare them and tell them that they will have to disclose all the documentation, all the paperwork, and that the development project will be done in any case, and you just have to accept it. However, you can have a way to improve it. Well, don't feel good about having to answer all the questions, but maybe you have another question to this. You have another to this question, do you? About the community and... So what we decided to do here, actually, we already came to already formed community. School children and school teachers, they work where they, they live where they work and where they study, and they spend a lot of time. So they are interested, they have a skin in the game, so to say. They're interested in this district, they have their own project, they have to use it, and I guess a school is a no-loss game, for you can attract the parents can draw in neighbors, so on and so forth. So that is kind of a chain of attracting the community. Elena, I have a question to both of you. How much time passed since you did the Broadway concept? Well, you admitted that it didn't go beyond the concept, but I believe the residents have a sense of abandonment. They've created something, they had some ideas, and nothing's happening. And you might have a rejection kind of phenomenon, even if the money is found, or they might get disappointed in participatory design, a participatory approach as a whole. How do you think we can avoid this kind of disappointments when you have inspired people first and then fail to deliver? Well, Altanay, you have, of course, fewer time or less time, but I have the question that Mayor yesterday said that something will be done with abandoned buildings. And I think in the list of those abandoned buildings, the Shugla Cinema Theater was too. So are you thinking of restoring or changing the Shugla Cinema Theater for this initiative, maybe to sort of chip in your idea or to pitch your idea so that the municipality will not have to destroy, abolish this building if there is no good idea for the potential reuse and kind of redesign of this building? Thank you for a very good question. Yes, cinema actually, Shugla Cinema Theater is in demand by the school children. They want to turn it into a mediatheca, kind of a public space or live. They mentioned Zhambu Library on Formanova Maketaeva that has been transformed. So they want to have a space where we could spend time after the school. So I think it's a pretty good function, and the cinema theater can really be turned into that and can take this opportunity fully. We've been negotiating with the mayor, Kulagin. However, hasn't promised anything for the budget for 2020. Wasn't formed, or it has not been formed yet. It is quite possible that some money, some funding will be allocated for our project as well, for the Shugla project. Well, how much time you asked? About 18 months passed after any communication has ended on the Broadway project. However, there was kind of long tail, kind of the ending tail. We had this participatory activity that was peaked, then we had negotiations and talks with the head of local administration, with MPs and so on, and somehow just faded out, and we stopped communicating. As for the promise and the potential disappointment when you have to leave, well, I believe we have to deliver no matter what you have money or not, but we made a mistake there. So going back, we still can't go back, there's a chance, but maybe we will have lost our faith, but that's okay, yes. If we have an opportunity to continue to resume this project, we will do so. I think this opportunity to resume the project or to implement the project is not lost yet. And I think, yeah, we probably have created some negative attitude, but we'll try to either resume or, well, yeah, and for the future, it's just we will say that, okay, don't give any promises that you cannot deliver. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, then my name is Director Soros. Okay, the children love sports. Yeah, they love sport, they love playing with each other. And the movement plays an important role in human life. Do your projects consider potential construction of stadiums with tribunes, with benches, or with tableau, where different courtyard teams could battle or could compete? They can be open or they can be closed, they can be open air. For instance, in Toronto, Canada, they have 300 indoors skating rinks. So 300 actually is the number higher than in all of Russia. Is that a question for both of us or just for one of us? Well, I might take this or perceive this as an idea. Thank you for this. Actually, we hadn't gone to the level of such a detalization as to what the stadium is going to look like and the facility is going to be like. So, for instance, we did not go that far with the Broadway project, for instance. So therefore, well, yes, I will take note of this idea. Thank you. And the problem of democratizing the sport or making the sport more accessible and affordable is there. We must push people and we must create people opportunities to go out and play, to form a team, and so on. These are the questions, of course, that we are facing. Just building a stadium is not enough. Well, our project worked is based on the school children's demands and needs, and did not manifest the sports. They are more interested in skateboarding, roller skating, and cycling, and sledging, skiing, skating, all of those. So that's what they needed. I mean, that was their request. That is why we thought of a cycling park or skating park for summer season, and something that has to do with winter sports for winter in the balm wood, not as a stadium. Thank you. Thank you all for your questions, and thank you, the speakers, for your presentations.